Brilliant stuff. Well, hello everyone, and thank you so much for joining myself and Maureen here today, where we're presenting on our topic, which is charting the UDL Voyage, Transformative Practices at Atlantic Technological University, or ATU as we call it for short. So, Maureen, if you wouldn't mind just move on to the next slide for me there. So today, what we're going to talk about really is who we are and where we've come from, the historical development of our higher education institute from being an Institute of Technology Sligo to becoming Atlantic Technological University. We're going to talk about the innovative approaches we have adopted to implement UDL and to engage our staff and students in the process, our UDL accredited programme development, and our future plans for advanced implementation of UDL across ATU and beyond. So just, I suppose, to introduce ourselves briefly, I'm Niamh Plunkett and I'm the Head of Teaching and Learning at ATU Sligo, and I look forward to talking through our UDL developments at ATU, which really encompasses a top-down, bottom-up approach. I'm here today joined with my colleague Maureen, so I'll just pass over to Maureen for a moment to introduce herself.
Hi everyone, it's great to be able to tune in here today. The character on the right is me. I'm Maureen Haran. I'm a UDL lecturer in ATU, managing the ATU UDL Centre of Excellence. I chair and teach on the postgrad cert and Masters in UDL at ATU. A little bit about me, I've been lecturing in ATU for the past 5 years, and prior to that I was a disability officer in ATU for nearly 4 years. But my experiences kind of all stem from my professional career as an educator in the US and Ireland in the primary and post-primary sector, where I first kind of encountered or came across mainstreaming and inclusive practices together. But I'll chat a little bit more later on about program developments and sustaining UDL and the momentum in higher education. So back over to you, Niamh.
Brilliant. Maureen, just go on to the next slide for me. So you'll see the logo on the screen where we use the tagline, climbing the UDL ladder, and that is exactly what our journey symbolises. We kind of started out on the bottom rung, we're working our way up, but all the while we feel very supported at the top. And we believe it's this top-down, bottom-up approach that has enabled our ambitions and our success. So on the right, you can see a map of Ireland, and we started out as one college called Institute of Technology Sligo, or IT Sligo as we were known. And as you can see on the map, there were more or less situated kind of in the centre of all the other places that are highlighted. Then a number of years ago, IT Sligo, in collaboration with Letterkenny and Galway Mayo IOTs, we were redesignated as Atlantic Technological University on the 1st of April 2022. So we now comprise 9 campuses in total, across a large geographical spread, which is home to 18% of the national population. So you can see on the screen there all the places where all 9 ATU colleges now reside. So in total, ATU has a student population of over 25,000 students across 4 faculties, and we have nearly 4,000 staff in total. So Maureen, if you wouldn't mind moving on. So with this UDL infogram that you now see on the screen, it highlights all of the development initiatives that we've been involved in since 2017. This wasn't our vision or an actual work plan, but we feel it rather depicts how UDL organically developed, initially across IT Sligo and over the past 2 years across ATU. So while our Institute strategic plan actioned the implementation of UDL across all programmes in Sligo, there was very limited evidence of staff awareness of UDL. So my establishment of the Teaching and Learning Centre in 2017 provided a really timely opportunity to support the introduction and establishment of UDL as a teaching and learning framework. So Maureen and I organised many workshops, guest speakers and events to help staff understand the principles of UDL and how beneficial these are in their teaching and supporting students' learning. I don't have time to go into detail on all the initiatives on the infogram, but I'm just going to summarise some of the key ones. So University College Dublin and the AHEAD organisation in Ireland had developed a digital badge in UDL, which took about 25 hours to complete over an approximate 4-month duration, in which staff made one small change to their module and presented their activity then through a case study format. So at the time, Maureen completed the badge, became a facilitator, and then rolled this programme out locally to our staff. The initial 15 staff who participated became our champions and enabled us to garner support and further spread word about the availability of the badge and other UDL initiatives. We also established a UDL working group comprising of myself, Maureen as UDL lead, academics, a librarian, instructional designer, our disability officer and a student union rep. So the group agreed that we needed to make it easy for academics to embed UDL in programmes. So to enable that, we embedded UDL principles into our curriculum software management called Academic Module Manager. This really supported staff when developing new modules and programmes by having drop-down menus signposted throughout, which were aligned with their learning outcomes, teaching methodologies and assessment strategies. So what this meant was when an academic was considering particular learning outcomes at, say, level 6, 7, 8, 9, right up to 10, they could click the drop-down menu and information will be available on what each level aligned with in terms of verbs to use at particular levels. The same with teaching methodologies and assessment strategies. Staff click on the drop-down menus and are brought to resources on our Teaching and Learning SharePoint page with loads of assessment strategies, how they might be used, how to create them. Through competitive funding we received, it enabled us to carry out UDL projects with staff and students. One substantive project involved 31 academics submitting their module along with all of their module resources and content to be assessed for UDL accessibility. Each academic was given detailed feedback and support to amend or update their module to be fully UDL accessible. A follow-up project with those students who were taking the 31 modules that had been assessed voiced their insights on the accessibility of modules, and having that student voice is really important to us. By this time, we wanted to engage all staff in UDL developments, so we held our inaugural UDL conference entitled Building a Culture of Inclusion in Higher Education in May 2021, which we held online due to the pandemic that was ongoing. The 2022 conference, Conceptualising UDL with a Student Voice, was held in person with over 150 participants. In 2023, our conference became a national event in which we partnered with Munster Technological University. Our title was Overcoming Obstacles to Enhance and Sustain UDL Collaboration in Tertiary Education. So you can see we are spreading our UDL remit to include the further education sector as well as the higher education sector. The Teaching and Learning Centre within ATU Sligo established a UDL Centre of Excellence to drive all UDL initiatives within the university and to aim to anchor UDL as a teaching and learning framework. Maureen will talk about our centre and our involvement with the Higher Education Authority funded projects in which ATU have led nationally on 3. These projects are the development of a national charter on UDL called the Altitude Charter, the creation of a web accessibility statement, and the development and rollout of a leadership and UDL short course for middle and senior leaders and managers in both further and higher education. All of our work has culminated in ATU being awarded in 2022 with the prestigious John Kelly National Award for UDL and Collaboration, for which we are really, really proud. This year we are hosting the John Kelly Award as part of our conference on Friday the 25th of October at ATU Sligo, and it would be just lovely if some of you were able to join us on the day. I shall pop that date and some information in the chat box for you. So for now I'm going to hand you over to Maureen.
Great, Niamh. Thanks so much. I'm going to start off with UDL program development. ATU is the only higher education institute in Ireland to establish a UDL Centre of Excellence, which functions as a central hub for UDL research, professional development, assistive technologies, inclusivity, advocacy, and collaborations. The Centre provides the postgraduate certificate / master's in UDL program, which is the first of its kind within Ireland as well. And we welcomed our first inaugural cohort in the 2022-23 academic year. There is a paucity of research available, and I've been listening to the other presentations throughout the day today and the panel yesterday. So we do recognize that there is a need to deepen the pool of research and the effectiveness of UDL as a viable teaching and learning framework. So this program provides the opportunity to develop that body of knowledge across not only ATU, but nationally and now internationally. We've opened up that program as well. So that's the Level 9 Postgraduate Certificate in UDL at ATU. I'll drop some of that information into the chat box after our presentation if you want to have a look. Synergies also exist right across ATU through current initiatives in our education modules. So in ATU Galway's postgraduate diploma, in ATU Donegal's Masters in Education, the UDL Digital Badge has also been threaded through an e-portfolio assessment on ATU Sligo's postgraduate certificate in teaching, learning and assessment. And this is where a lot of kind of first-time lecturers first engage with the scholarship of teaching and learning. So it's great to have UDL embedded there as well. Locally, a range of supports and activities are available within the institution, such as engagement with a Best Inclusive Practice Toolkit, which is housed on our virtual learning environment. We use Moodle in ATU. And this is to support staff implementing UDL right across the ATU. So it's a center of, it's a hub of resources. Not only that, we've just moved on to a SharePoint, so that's actually gone even wider than Moodle. But the data analytics from Moodle from 2022 to 2023 were very interesting. We found that the reports show that over 1,100 academic staff and over 300 students have accessed the UDL Moodle site from November 22 to 23. What's interesting about the students' uptake is that that Moodle page really was about resources for staff and implementing UDL. So, you know, obviously we're learning that students are interested in this as well. 3 academic programs across ATU have just completed an inclusive program review pilot, which reviews UDL in academic programs across faculties. And the aim of the pilot sought to embed UDL programs, embed UDL through facilitation of inclusive audits and implementation and recommendations of the same. So I'm going to try to share my screen with you just to show you, give you a visual of what I'm referring to. And I'm hoping this moves over quite seamlessly. So let me just pop this up and drag it across. Now it's still showing my lovely red box, but Niamh, can you tell me, can you see that on screen?
It's quite faint, Maureen, but yes, I can see it.
Oh, okay.
If you can make it any bigger, that would be great. But
I'll try. That might be better. Is that it? I've gone to 130%. Any larger than that, I think I'll disappear from the screen. But I just kind of wanted to give a visual. Sometimes it's better for people to have the visual of what you're referring to. So this inclusive programmatic review came from several different consultations. The first being obviously our great national resource, which was the UCD's toolkit in teaching and learning, specifically from that pillar. We looked at that, and then we looked at the CAST organization's guidelines, the previous ones. Obviously the new ones aren't out yet. And we mirrored all of that for our bespoke purposes in ATU. Because we are a technological university, we're quite different and unique in that way. So the review then went through a consultation with more knowledgeable others, so other staff members that have completed the UDL Digital Badge or have completed the Level 9 certificate in UDL as well. I also worked with champions from a national larger initiative across Ireland, where I was lucky to engage with 6 UDL academic champions who worked with the programs to review their content. So we had 3 programs, one from each campus, one from Donegal, Sligo and Galway, who went through the review over this last academic year. This is just a sample of one of them. So, you know, the review was scored between 0 to 5 in several different categories, and they were broken down through the different principles as well. I'm not sure how great this visual is coming through, so I won't land here for very long. What followed then, the review, we did a pre-audit, the audit, and then the post-audit. And we met with the program teams at each turn. And what followed was a report or a review, which I'll also drag across very briefly, where we identify the strengths, the gaps, and the recommendations. We then engage back with the program team to let them know what these were, and then to identify what training is needed to support them going forward. We also identified what the commonalities were and the threads between the 3 different pilot groups as well, to see if there's something we can do more broadly. So that's just kind of an example of some of the things that we're working on with staff in terms of program development. So the 3 participating programs combined have a reach of 59 academic staff, and it impacts over 170 student learning experiences. So that's been really interesting in terms of the inclusive program review. The UDL Regional Hub Network, regionally, the ATU UDL Centre of Excellence has engaged with the Donegal, Sligo, Mayo, Leitrim, Galway and Roscommon education training boards. So within Ireland, these are 6 different counties that are have education training boards. It's a further education approach. It's different terminology, I know, in different countries. I'm conscious of that. But we've engaged with the academics from this sector as well, because they're within our region and we have a lot of commonalities. We also have pathway programs between the further and higher education where we know the students would be well supported from one to the other. And so it's about that continuity and keeping UDL very much alive, between the student experiences from one range to the other. So we established a regional hub in May of 2023 to support the development of a network of practitioners, communities of practice, and facilitate opportunities to learn across these sectors. So thematically and regionally, while not acknowledging the significance of the UDL framework within these contexts. The UDL Regional Hub, we conducted a consultation survey to determine initial outputs of this network, and 176 regional practitioners responded with their priorities in relation to UDL practices and resources. So this is coming from both sectors within our region. This extensive survey input assisted in the formation of the UDL Regional Hub terms of reference. So we've taken that on board, and extended practices nationally. In April of 2023, the Centre conducted a national survey with both sectors to ascertain the needs for specific bespoke workshops to support staff. So that was part of the Hub's work as well. These results indicated the need for the following online workshops that were offered in May of 2023. So we did a national workshop on digital inclusion, another one on inclusive curriculum development, and a third one on inclusive module reviews. So along with the programmatic reviews, we also have a toolkit for modular reviews as well. So, these can be done through self-assessment if colleagues want to go in and look at their individual module and determine, is it actually kind of compliant with the principles of UDL? That's where they can first engage with that as well. So the Centre continues ongoing collaboration with the HEAD and UCD and the national rollout of the UDL Digital Badge to support staff nationally. And to date, 23 ATU UDL Digital Badge facilitators have supported hundreds of UDL Digital Badge participants in national and local badge rollouts. In furthering an inclusive community practice across the ATU and under the remit of UDL, the Centre of Excellence works with academic peer networks, and we've established on each of the ATU campuses an academic peer network, and this is done to nurture the sharing of good practice. And this network was formed to keep the momentum that started on the ground. As Niamh mentioned, we didn't really have a set agenda. We just kind of saw where we were going with UDL and what the need was, what our colleagues needed, and kept going from there. So this is where academics come up with ideas for workshops and for sharing best practice and to support other UDL initiatives within each campus. So it keeps the momentum going on each campus as well. So I'm just going to move on a little bit further and talk a little bit about sustainability. So we talked a lot about kind of the ground up approach, and now we're getting, which is fantastic, the support from the top down as well. So there's a lot of different things to consider in terms of sustainability. We need to look at student engagement, research endeavors, the Altitude Charter, and international collaborations as well. So to ensure the sustainability of UDL within the teaching and learning sphere of higher education, we must equip our students with the fundamentals of the framework and encourage them to participate as equal partners. After all, they are the most important partner in all of this work. So focus groups were held with ATU students in spring of 2022, and this yielded information that made us aware that we needed to engage more with students on informing them of what UDL is. This small sample of students voiced that they were unaware of what UDL is and how it impacts their experience. So, we kind of reflected on that and brought that forward that, well, we need to find out a little bit more. So in April of 2023, in partnership with Student Union, we conducted a university-wide survey to inform the practices of the ATU UDL Centre of Excellence. So the survey set out to determine what students know about UDL and what it means to be an empowered learner. An overwhelming 600 plus students responded, and their input indicated that the university needed to respond to this gap. So in response to this, the centre has worked with a large initiative here in Ireland called Tutor. It's funding that's been kind of handed down through the EU. I don't know the acronym off by hand. It's the National Technological University, and it has to do with the recovery and resilience after COVID, basically. So significant funding has been handed down, and we've been working with the UDL academic and student champions from that initiative on various UDL initiatives across ATU, one of which is the first ever UDL Student Digital Badge, which will have an offering to all students. For the framework to be sustainable, though, as a viable teaching and learning approach within higher education, we need to inform students that they have a right to an inclusive education and that the UDL framework offers an inclusive approach that can enrich their experience. The contribution of support and initiatives at local and national level has contributed to ATU's leadership in UDL, which has led to the natural progression of international collaboration. So the UDL Centre of Excellence now engages with colleagues from Include through their international conferences. It's great to be here today. We were in Morocco a few months ago, really enjoyed that too. So it's great to engage with, come away from the Eurocentric point of view with UDL too, and look at what's happening in the global south and look at the wider lens of UDL across the globe. As well as this, we've established collaborative partnerships with a couple of higher education institutes in Toronto. We're looking to further the field of research in this area. It's vital to the sustainability going forward. Along with contributing to the field of research in UDL to sustain the framework in higher ed and sharing and celebrating best inclusive practices, it's also a vital component to sustainability. ATU has held 3, as Niamh has mentioned, inaugural conferences starting in 2021, where colleagues, they get the chance to come together to share their UDL practices and learn from the national and international speakers and from one another. It's very, very important to keep, that momentum going as well. Yesterday's panel touched on systemic changes regarding inclusion, and Ireland has been at the forefront of this in the last 18 months. ATU has led on the Altitude Charter, which Niamh has mentioned there. So this is the National Charter for Tertiary Education and Universal Design. As well as this, we've led on the National Leadership in UD project with strong potential to impact inclusive education practices in higher education. So that's looking at we understand that senior leaders are time poor, so that particular project group, they devised a short module, online module that leaders right across the country can engage with the principles of universal design for learning, so they can then really have an impact and support their staff. Responding to the National Access Plan, though funded by the HEA under what is called Path 4, the Altitude Charter projects, which I was directly involved in, was developed through an extensive collaboration involving national and institutional partners from Ireland's tertiary education sector. So the Altitude Charter aims to serve as a vehicle for institutions by fostering a systemic implementation roadmap for universal design that institutes can adopt and implement. The Charter includes 4 pillars within the fabrics of institutions, so teaching and learning, student support services, and the digital and physical environments, which is adopted from Sheryl Burgstahler's model of universal design in education, and this underpins the Charter. I'll try to just briefly share on screen, if I'm able,
just about 2 minutes to go, Maureen.
Oh, perfect. I'm just wrapping it up, so that's perfect. I'm just wondering, can everyone see the charter there?
Yes.
Okay, yep. Perfect. I've just lost all of you. Now you're back. Okay. I'm just going to skip down to page 19 just to show you what we're talking about in terms of the 4 pillars. Again, I feel that visuals are always very helpful to what somebody's talking about. These are the 4 pillars here: learning, teaching, and assessment, supports, services, and social engagement, physical environment, the digital environment. Now, the charter itself, you can see it's 28 pages long. It's in the development of the charter, we also developed a technical report, and we were so lucky that we had our colleagues from University College Dublin that also grafted the implementation toolkit alongside all of this work. So not only are we saying, here's the charter, we're going to work on adopting it and implementing it, but here's the tool to actually implement this charter. I'm sure you've probably heard from Lisa Padden and Daniel, who are over in Worcester over these coming days. So they might actually talk a little bit more on that. We looked at the strategic enablers, and then this, along with a massive consultation, I'm not going to go on all the details of the charter, but massive consultation and draft forms evolved into what is the Altitude Charter. Now, this has only been launched, and it's a national conversation. We're now looking at the adoption and implementation phase of the charter as well. Now, I'm conscious of the time, so I'm going to wrap it up here. I'm going to go back to our slideshow, hopefully, and wrap up. Just lost you again. Okay, so I'll pop a little bit more about the Altitude Charter into the chat box. So very finally, just the bottom-up approach started with UDL traction in ATU, but the top-down approach has been a key driver in adopting and implementing UDL within ATU. Our former president of what was IT Sligo, as well as the vice president of teaching and learning in ATU, have supported massively with Dr. Niamh Plunkett, who's here with us today, all the progression to date, and fully supported the new UDL Centre of Excellence at the executive level. Our current president has supported and endorsed the progression of UDL within the university, which is key, and has UDL firmly marked as a fixture in the new university strategic plan, which is going to be launched quite soon. So sustaining the UDL framework in teaching and learning at ATU relies significantly on the ongoing support of senior management and the careful implementation of the Altitude Charter as well. So that just brings us to some resources we have here if you want to grab the QR code with your phone. These are links to some of the developments Niamh mentioned in her timeline, our inclusive program reviews, our National Altitude Tertiary Charter is linked there as well as the details and the contact details from the Centre of Excellence in UDL. Thanks so much. Niamh, is there anything else to add? I kind of hogged it, sorry.